All right, board members, Christy, glad you could make it this morning. Board members, let's go ahead and turn our cameras on. We can get started.
Gregory, it's saying that you disabled us being able to turn on our cameras.
That's not helpful, is it? Give me 1 second. Okay, you should be able to turn them on now. All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here on short notice on Saturday morning. Really appreciate it. We're here, of course, in light of Matt Walker's resignation as board president. We're going to have an executive session initially to talk about that, and then we're going to have a public portion of the meeting as well to discuss next steps, including the things we've been working on in the past in terms of looking for an executive director, interim and permanent, doing a community contemplation exercise, and some other matters and assigning tasks that Matt was leading. So before we get going too far, let me read the opening verse, which is, "The true aim of education is to awaken real powers of perception and judgment in relation to life and living, for only such an awakening can lead to true freedom." It's from Rudolf Steiner. So as we usually do, let's go around and introduce ourselves. I'm Gregory Schneider, the board secretary, and a parent of 2 kids at the school. And April, will you go next? Not sure what's going on with April. Can't unmute, huh? How about now?
Got it.
Okay. Thank you.
My sign was disappearing. I'm April Sauer, board member and parent.
And Nathaniel?
Nathaniel Allen, board member and parent.
And John Elling?
Yes, John Elling, board treasurer.
And Mr. Tanner?
John Tanner, board member.
All right, so just looking at the list of attendees, it looks like there are people who know the drill in terms of how these board meetings go, but we'll go ahead and rehash it anyhow. This is the meeting of the board of directors. It's our meeting in which the public gets to participate. We also are going to have an executive session today, as I mentioned before, which we're allowed to do under the open meeting laws when a public officer of the board resigns, and we want to discuss it. So we're going to use that provision of the open meeting laws to discuss that, and then we will resume in regular open fashion and continue on. The executive session is confidential, so what we discuss there will not be available to the public, but obviously the public portions will. So let's, on our agenda today, it's a short list, but it may involve quite a bit of discussion. So let's get straight to it. So I would move that we enter executive session for a discussion regarding the resignation of Matt Walker, a public officer of DMS, as permitted by the open meeting laws.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Tanner. Any discussion? All right, not hearing any. All in favor? All right, it's unanimous. The motion passes, and we will enter executive session now. Board members, you should have all received a link to the executive session Zoom meeting. Did everyone receive that? Yeah.
Yes. I'm
Okay.
sorry, Gregory, did we want to invite Christy into the executive session?
Thank you, April. Yes.
So we need to redo that, right?
I'll just do another motion. I move to invite
Okay.
Christy Kriegsfeld into the executive session.
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor? All right. It's unanimous and the motion passes. Thank you, April. All right. So we will enter executive session now. I'm going to leave this webinar open and not mute myself while I'm talking. And then we will return when the executive session is over. Participants, you're welcome to stay in the webinar and await our return. So board members, feel free to leave this meeting and head to the executive session. Thanks.
Very nice. Abby was happy, and
So he's going to check it out.
well, he said it's most
Uh,
likely Monday.
Mr. Tanner, you're not on mute. All right, looks like we're all here. Let's go ahead and turn our cameras back on, board members. All right, so welcome back, everyone. And before we get into the specifics, I just want to say that, we collectively are standing firm with the school. We are excited to continue the work of the school that's been started. We are ready to step up and make sure that all the things that have been set in motion continue in motion, and we're not going to lose any bit of momentum by this setback. So having said that, let's dig in and let's make some assignments of tasks so that we all know what we need to do. All right, so first on our list is hiring an interim and permanent executive director. So I think we need to clarify, I know that Matt had been talking to a couple of candidates. I think we just need to clarify what our process is going to be in terms of interviewing interim candidates and making an offer. So my thought is, given the timeline and the need to have somebody sooner than later. Sorry, I'm trying to do two things at once here. That we delegate the bulk of that task to a couple people on the board, and then they would report back to the board. We don't have a meeting scheduled until the 21st right now, but I'm thinking we might try and set up another meeting perhaps sooner than that, maybe towards the end of this coming week, to deal with that and maybe some other issues that come up. So thoughts, board members?
Are you asking for volunteers for this to fill this role, or
Yeah.
other feedback?
Yes, volunteers to do that. Does that sound like a sensible plan to everybody for this interim executive director position?
I've been focused for a long while on the permanent executive director position, and I prefer to stay there because I'm already in it. I'm already doing those things, but I'm happy to assist. I just don't feel comfortable leading the charge on the interim.
Yeah.
So if you need another body in interviews, or a sounding board, things of that nature, I'm happy to help with that.
So yeah, I'm happy to be one of those people picking up that thread, and I would like somebody else to at least interview with me, just so that I have another set of eyes, ears, perspective on this person or persons that we're interviewing, and before we make a recommendation to the full board.
I'm happy to volunteer for that. If you feel it's appropriate, I'm happy to take up that responsibility.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful. I'm mindful, of the fact that you're also a teacher, and that may shade things. But I think one of the things, at least that we've contemplated with the permanent executive director, is having faculty input. So we would be hitting that box here on the interim director too. So I'm good with that. John, Ellie, Nathaniel, your thoughts?
Thoughts on Mr. Tanner being part of that? I don't, have a problem with that at all. Just as you said, it's good to have multiple perspectives anytime we're looking for that. Being an interim position, I think we want to really look at, when we make this offer, that we have an end date in mind. And, that should be the length of that. I hesitate getting into another interim and acting director for over 2 years. And so, I would just caution that we put some steps in place to make sure that we don't allow ourselves to not move forward as quickly as we know we need to.
Yeah, agreed.
Sort of in that same vein again, knowing that we have some candidates for interim position, I would think we could construct a plan based on you and John Tanner interviewing those that we currently have available, and then ultimately making a recommendation to the board ASAP.
Yeah. So Go ahead.
I was just going to say, what's a reasonable period of time for that? You can tell me, but even if it was like by the end of next week, you would have met with those candidates and come up with some sort of formative, suggestion for our next board meeting, the one that you've just referenced, we may schedule. I think that's an appropriate plan.
Yeah, that's my thought, is that we try and meet with these folks this week and make a recommendation to the board by Friday at the latest as to who we would recommend. And then I think it would be appropriate for the full board to interview that person, make sure everybody's on board, and then convene an executive session to decide on what to do.
Gregory, has there been discussion on the interim position as far as salary benefits and things like that? Or the contract offer, when it's made, is going to have to be approved by the board. We may want to have some discussion on that at some point.
You're right, and I don't know the answer to that. I'm still wrapping my arms around this one. So, but you're absolutely right. We need to figure out those details and see what it would look like. It may be, if it's not an employee position, if it's a contractor position, then that makes it a little bit simpler because it's just a flat 1099 employee, and it's just $1 line, and we don't have to worry about anything else. And that's would be my expectation for where this lands. So I think we would only be discussing the dollar figure. All right. So unless any other discussion on that, I think we'll then proceed with me and John Tanner meeting with these candidates and making a recommendation to the board, hopefully by Friday, but as soon as we can in any event. Okay. Next on our list, hiring a permanent executive director. So before Matt resigned, we developed the idea of an advisory panel. We took steps to, and Matt assigned Nathaniel and April to be the board member representatives on that advisory panel. And then we had solicited applications from parents and faculty, and got a surprisingly few number of interested persons, I think. And at our last meeting, we discussed, do we need to open that up one more time on a very short basis? And we all generally agreed, yeah, let's do that. Let's give it a few days, window, and then we can proceed. But I just want to make sure we're all still on board with that. If we think we need to make any changes to that timeline, and who's going to be in charge of sending out that communication and monitoring that.
So there's a lot to discuss, and I'm going to try to be quick because I know we're on a clock here. We said we were going to do it. We agreed to do it. I would like to continue to do it, but I just want to truncate that timeline. The documents already exist. The plan already exists. I wrote those letters. I can revamp them to send them out. I have no problem doing that quickly and swiftly. And there has been a lot of communication I'm getting from various staff members saying, well, what about this? What about this? I'm this member of staff, but I'm not qualified for these things. So I think we need to do two things. I think we need to, this is just my opinion. I think we need to stick with the plan of putting together the advisory panel, truncate it. The second piece of that is I think we also need to find a way for those staff members who don't fit the criteria to get some input from them. And that might be a Google Forms spelling out what they think is most important, what qualities they're looking for, or it may be, a Zoom conversation with staff saying, talk to me, what are your experiences? What do you want to see? What do you not want to see? And I'm happy to do all of that. So those are my thoughts.
Nathaniel,
And I think I can make it happen.
Okay. That all sounds great to me. And Nathaniel, you're the other person leading this charge right now. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think if April will maybe revamp and resend that request for 2 faculty members and 2 parents, and that we can get sort of finalize that. I don't know if that window closed again after the last meeting already, and we've got what we've got. But maybe you can clarify that point real quick.
Yeah, what is the timeline going to be? I think we should decide that.
Okay.
So we're obviously just doing this for the permanent executive director. This does not affect the interim. We don't have time for that on the interim. But I think I could put this together and have a done deal by Friday. So the same amount of time it'll take to make a recommendation for the interim. I think I can have this set. You give everyone a couple of days to write their letter of intent. And then once we get that, we give them a couple of days to fill out the survey form that we had talked about to give us input. And then I can put forward recommendations, on Friday. And we can, at that next board meeting on the 21st, we can specifically say, these are the people we want on the panel and do a vote. And then we're ready to go. And in the meantime, I'm culling resumes. I'm already talking to people. I think we could get that done really quickly.
Good. Sounds good. So by Friday, we'll have your recommendations on advisory panel members. It's great. Thank you.
Sorry, I just want to clarify. I'm not making the recommendations by that date. I'm getting their letter of intents and getting their information based on the survey.
Right.
So on the 21st, that's when I will put forward, this is who I recommend for the panel.
Okay.
And Nathaniel, do you want to be involved or you want me to do that? I'm happy to do it solo.
Happy to be involved, just so that there's more than one of us.
Okay.
Good. Moving right along. So we have retaining someone to facilitate faculty/staff education and training, which is something that we voted on doing last time, saying, yes, we want to do that. But I don't think we have designated anyone to lead that charge. I'm going to recommend that John Elling be involved in that. If he is so willing. I think that he has the experience to interview candidates for that type of position and to find somebody good. And John, I'm open to suggestions and you telling me, no way, dude. Or if you want someone else to be involved too, but that's my thought.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm happy to take that on, Gregory. Probably always best to have a couple people doing that, but we can certainly do that.
Board members, anyone else willing to help John Elling with that task?
I can help with that.
Thank you, Nathaniel.
Thanks, Nathaniel.
All right. Next on the agenda, the school-wide contemplation exercise. This obviously is important, very important, and it's something that we're going to proceed with as we said we would at our last board meeting a few days ago. We also discussed, I think, fleshing out the details of this more once we've decided on who our executive director is going to be so that they could participate in that process fully, which I think is a wise decision to get everybody on the same board. But that said, I think we could continue developing the framework for what it might even look like, who could be participating in that. We have a couple names of people that Matt was talking to about that. This is something that I would be willing to pick up the thread on. I think it would be helpful to have someone else. But if there's also someone else who's willing to jump on that, please speak up.
I'm more than willing to help with that. I think a school contemplation exercise is very important for the school spiritually, and I don't think we need to limit that to a single one-time action. It takes a few times to get practiced at these things, and so if I would be happy to assist.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
I agree with all of that, but I also feel like we need to hold off on moving forward with that, because I feel like having the executive director involved with that will be extremely important. And I also think that we will learn a lot from the faculty and staff education and training. And I feel like we're going to get a lot of information from that could possibly change the focus of the school-wide exercise. So I don't want to kind of, come up with a structure and a plan and then have to completely scrap it and start over. I think that's a waste of time and resources. So while I say yes, we need to do it and move forward, I think we just do so slowly and with the thought in mind that this is secondary. It comes next. So I would like to just go at a snail's pace on that one and not get too ahead of ourselves.
The only thing I might offer there, April, is that these exercises help build unity and also a unity of action in terms of attracting the right people to come to the school. So if you would consider that possibility, and it's not to say when a new executive director comes in that they might want to have a different activity for the school, and I'm sure that they probably would. I remember when I lived in Philadelphia, they used to do this thing where they would get everybody in the city to read the same book at the same time, and it was sort of a very powerful activity. So I'm not trying to be contradictory. I just wanted you to consider some other the benefits of maybe a slow moving meditation, perhaps.
Yeah, and I'd be fine with that. I don't want to get too stuck to the details and the plan that we're doing it just to do it. I want to be very clear about our intentions, and sometimes the timing is important. But there are certainly things we can be doing along the way that will be beneficial and a part of this.
Well, thank you for warning us about being careful with our time. I think we do need to be careful. So we'll leave it at that, and we'll let Gregory decide from there, if that's all right with Gregory.
Yeah, that's fine. And I think there's a lot of merit in what both of you are saying. And I think we can do some slow but very conscientious things, even passive things, kind of like Mr. Tanner is saying of, here's a book we recommend everybody read, as a way of educating ourselves kind of in the same materials. and doing it collectively, you know, even if there is not a public forum to discuss that, but then also, you know, once this new executive director is hired, I'd like to be able to hand them some tool, like a toolkit of, you know, hey, we've talked to these people, they say that they can provide these types of services, and we've talked to these people and they say they can provide these types of services. You know, it's now your job to shepherd this community through this process as the leader of the school. So I don't want to, I would like to leave whoever we hire with as many tools in their toolkit off the bat as we can. But I agree with you 100%, April. You know, we need to involve that person heavily. All right. Moving on. So we now have, we all got a list of things that Matt was working on that we would like to, or that we need to make sure that we have covered on assignment. We've covered a few of them already. The next one that I think needs to be reassigned is the community communications that the board receives. Matt, in conjunction with April, had been taking the laboring oar and responding to emails that the board got. He'd also been trying to do a newsletter update to the school, that sort of thing. I think that's a worthy effort that needs to be taken up again. April, are you still willing to participate in that, at least to some extent?
In responding to emails?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, because I had nothing to do with that newsletter. And I don't want to write a newsletter. Matt and I had sort of arrangements of which topics we covered. So I'm willing to do that, but I would like to keep those boundaries because it's a lot. And I cannot do it all by myself. And frankly, there are topics that I can't.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah.
I don't have the proper decorum for certain topics. So as long as somebody else is there to, you know, pick up that other piece of it, I'm happy to do that. And there was a lot of open discussion of, you know, he would just kind of make, can you handle this one? Or I would say, I'm on this one already. You know, we were very communicative about that.
Good. And I'm willing to, this is one that I think that I could do a good job at in terms of communicating with people with the decorum that would be beneficial, and I'm willing to commit to that. And I'd also like to take a stab at some more frequent communications to the community from the board. So in addition to the minutes, there's some consistent communication going out about what we're working on, where we are, what the next steps are, those sorts of things. In the same vein, Mr. Tanner was talking about, you know, trying to get everybody thinking about the same kinds of things, you know, if not at the same time, and at a similar time. Any objection from anybody? Anybody else want to participate? Daniel or Mr. Elling, Mr. Tanner?
I think you guys will be great at it. That's my way of saying no.
We can talk more off screen, Gregory, about sort of protocols and who wants to take what. I have lots of thoughts. Wait.
Okay. Right,
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, great, let's touch base offline.
Okay. The next piece of this is Parent Square, and I'm happy to take that on. Just getting those, whatever the word is, getting the access. I feel like for the majority of the time, I'm the one making flyers and writing letters and whatnot. And it would just be easy if I had it and I could put that stuff out, you know, obviously still run it by the board, but just be able to do it in a second, not have to have anybody else approve it or send it off to anyone else.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And Christy very quickly gave me access yesterday. So I think it makes sense for both of us to have access.
Ooh, awesome.
If we can, just so that we can both be, you know, communicating without having to add extra layers of red tape.
I agree.
So, Christy, if you could add April to that access quickly, that would be great.
Me too.
Gregory,
Yeah.
I was just thinking about, just so that we're all clear, the modes of communication that the board is willing to participate in. Currently is we have the website specifically is where we communicate formally.
Mhm.
We have email that we either are sending community commentary to or responding to individual board related communications, and then Parent Square. I'm just wondering, is it helpful to clarify that the board has no intention of communicating in any other way, or are we willing to extend into some of the more informal channels? I know we have a Facebook page, I believe. I think it's old. It hasn't been used in some time. I'm going to suggest my preferences. What we've discussed are our means of communication, are our only means of communication. Just so nobody has any expectation in the community or otherwise that there's going to be commentary from the board on anything beyond that.
I think that's right, Nathaniel. We should stick with the channels we've already been using. And if we want to reevaluate that down the road, we certainly could. But let's stick with those three. The website, email, and Parent Square. Sorry, just trying to be a secretary here too. All right. We've talked about board applicants, answering parent emails. Financial items. John Elling, you're still taking the lead on meeting with RSF, and I think you have a meeting this Wednesday. Is that right?
Yeah, scheduled, right now it's scheduled for 3 p.m. Wednesday afternoon.
Okay.
And that would be with Reed. Amy, who was originally our contact, is on sabbatical. So we switched over to Reed is now taking over for RSF.
And April, you're arranging the site visit that's going to be on October 21st?
It's the 20th. And originally myself and Matt were going to attend. John Elling, I would love you to be there to be the second board member if you're available. 6:30 on the 20th.
6:30 p.m. on the 20th?
Yes.
Yeah, I could do that.
Okay. I will send you the appropriate invitation, and I'm already taking care of that. The list is ready. We're good to go on that.
Okay.
Good. And John, I'll join you for the meeting with RSF on Wednesday the 14th with Reed.
Oh, okay. I will. I'll shoot him an email, copy you on it, introducing you, and have him send you a link out for that meeting.
Perfect.
We'll touch base briefly before that, maybe just to
Yeah.
short phone call.
Yep. Agreed. Yeah, let's see, the Paycheck Protection Program loan. John Elling, that's one that you've been shepherding along as well.
Yeah, and I've had MidFirst is very good about sending out emails and things, and they're just not prepared yet to accept applications. But I've also been talking with Priscilla about that. Aspire has other clients that are also dealing in the same thing. And so everything's going well there. Aspire will really be taking the lead on our application for forgiveness on that. And so in conjunction, yeah, Priscilla and I should be able to do that. There's already been discussions with the auditor about the process and everything, so there should be no hiccups with the audit either.
Perfect. Let's see. Bank account authorization. I know Matt had access or authorization. Christy, was there anyone else who, on behalf of the board, had authorization?
Actually, Matt did not have authorization. That process was not completed turning over the signer rights. So we do need a board member to do that.
Okay.
And I can send the information as to where it stands so that that process can be completed. A former board member will need to meet whomever elects to be the signer on this board. The former board member will have to meet him or her at the bank to complete that process.
Mr. Elling, is that something that you would be willing to step into as the treasurer?
You know, we certainly could, Gregory. I don't know if we want to wait until after the board elections and reassignment of offices and so on and so forth. Or not.
I'm thinking we should probably set it in motion, and we can always add someone else after the fact, or change it after the fact, you know, in a month after board elections, or, you know, in a week or two after we elect new officers, or officer. But I don't want to have a gap where all of a sudden Christy has had her last day and we don't have anybody authorized. And it might take a few days we just need to make sure that somebody can sign the checks, especially for payroll. And I think it makes sense to have you fill that right now, since you're well connected and you're up for it.
Sure. Hey, Christy, what do we need to do to get that? Can I get in touch with you and then we can try to coordinate that?
Yes, absolutely. Matt and I were working on that, so I can just easily send over where we stand and what the directions are to get that accomplished.
Okay. Was it mostly just a problem with access to get into the bank because of the COVID situation?
Yes. And coordinating a meeting, you have to set an appointment and they're backed up. And yeah, it's been a pain.
And I had to do the same process with MidFirst when I was getting the PPP loan. But they were very accommodating and it worked out well. Let's, I'll shoot you an email. We'll touch base on what we need to do, that we can move that forward to make sure that it's done before the 23rd.
Sounds great.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Gregory, do we need a motion to approve him to sign the checks?
The bank may need that. Fair point. So yeah, I would move to authorize John Elling to become an authorized signer on the school's bank accounts and other financial accounts that are necessary for the day-to-day operation of the school.
I'll second
that.
Whoop.
You second. I'll third.
Yes.
That's not a thing.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, just typing out the motion. All right, any further discussion? Nope. All right, all in favor? Abstaining? All right, motion passes with Mr. Elling abstaining.
It's 10 to 11, just to give us some parameters.
Gregory,
Yep.
Gregory,
Go ahead.
Just one other quick question. I know Matt had mentioned something about the payroll and approving it and what needs signed on there. Does that need to be part of that last motion as well, or not?
I would think that that last motion would have covered it, since you
Okay.
are authorized to sign the checks and be a signer on the account. So I think you're covered there.
Okay, good deal. Just wanted to make sure of that.
Did anybody disagree with that assessment? Okay. All right. And April, thank you for the reminder of the clock. I think we are almost done. Mindful that Nathaniel has a hard stop at 11. I think we've pretty much covered what we need to cover today, and we can pick up anything else afterwards. Anything else, board members, that I'm missing or we need to decide this morning?
Gregory, if it's not inappropriate, I think letting Matt Walker know that we're very grateful for his service and his time and the role he played. I just think of all of the complexities of COVID and, the challenges. And I mean, he absolutely rose to the occasion. And I know that it took a lot of time and there was a lot of impact on him. So we're going to miss him, but I just wanted to publicly thank him.
Thank you, Nathaniel. And that's something I had meant to do at the beginning of the meeting today and neglected to do. So thank you for saying that. Yes. Very thankful for Matt stepping up at a time when the school needed him and digging in so thoroughly and so successfully in many ways, and giving us the framework and the ability to carry on after he had to resign. This transition could have been a lot harder than it was this morning. So I'm very pleased with all of the effort he put in, and thankful for it, because now we can continue on. And I think we will do so, and do so successfully. So thank you, Matt. All right, board members, any other business we need to attend to? All right, hearing none, I will move to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor? It's unanimous. The motion passes. We are adjourned after I read the closing verse, which is: the most important task for humankind today and in the future is that we should learn to live together and understand one another. If this human fellowship is not achieved, all talk of development is empty. That again is from Rudolf Steiner. All right. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you soon. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.